I'm moved away. Papa moved away. Sere, salama.
Hello, I'm Professor Jacinta Elston, Pro-Vice Chancellor Indigenous at Monash University. I'm a Murri from North Queensland with ties from Townsville to Palm Island, northwest Queensland, and up into the Gulf country where my great-grandmother Kitty was removed from. I feel very honoured to have been asked to open the Healthy Stories Equals Good Food online event. Let me start the process of opening the event by acknowledging the traditional owners of the lands I live and work on here in Melbourne, the people of the Kulin Nations. I'd like to also acknowledge all the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander brothers and sisters who are here because of the work that they're doing for our mob, and everyone else who is joining us, the allies, the supporters, the champions and the advocates, all the non-Indigenous mob who are working with us and for us around our communities. So I welcome you to this online event. And it's my great honour to acknowledge traditional owners of the lands where we are all gathered across Australia to join this event today. With her own special acknowledgement, let me offer my admiration and respect to the event facilitator, Nicole Turner, a Kamilaroi woman who I'm sure is very busy and committed through her many hats I'm sure that she wears, but particularly the 4 roles that I'm aware of. She's a nutritionist, she's the chair of the Indigenous Allied Health Australia organisation, she's Aboriginal Workforce Manager at Rural Doctors Network in New South Wales, and she's also an adjunct professor of University of Canberra. And so, Nicole, I want to just say thank you for taking on the role of facilitating this event on behalf of everybody here, and I'm sure across the sessions everything will go very well, but I want to just shout out how much I'm inspired by you, your work and the story of what you've been doing in your role as a nutritionist, and particularly the chair of Indigenous Allied Health Australia. Monash University, together with the many partners who've made this possible, this event possible, is honoured to bring this Healthy Stories Equals Good Food online event to you. As you all will know, I'm sure, because you're here, this event is focused on remote Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community stores and takeaways, and the advancements that we've seen, as well as the issues that remain for communities to have access to quality, healthy and affordable food supplies. We know, as you know, those of us who've been around in the Indigenous community space and in the Indigenous advocacy space, but just even from a public health point of view, which is where my discipline is, we know that everyone has the right to access healthy food at all times for a quality and fulfilled life. These are embedded inside of the Sustainable Development Goals, and you know, this right to access to good food, this right to access to being healthy in our food choices, is something that hasn't always been enjoyed by our mob, and we haven't always been able to control that, particularly over the last couple of 100 years of this colonial process of Australia's history. And so I want to acknowledge you all for the work that you're doing and for being here. While we focus on the now, let's be mindful of the food system that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples have maintained across the millennia, and where are maintained still today. The food system is one of balance and connectedness between people and the natural environment, between us and country. It produces no waste, it provides no harm, and it continues. This food system is in stark contrast to the food systems we all depend on today, where convenience comes at a great cost to human and planetary health. This 4-part series will bring to you for the first time the trailblazing effort of remote Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities and supporting organisations and the workers and the leaders who are there championing these efforts to ensure healthy, affordable and quality food supplies through community stores and takeaways. Community leaders have long recognised the link between store food and a community health, and the health of the community, I should say. Because of this, they've been bold in their approach to food retail, and they've been challenging. And I think particularly of all our community mob in Queensland, who, you know, when I think back across the years, haven't always had the control over community stores. And there's been lots of arguments and fights with government about what was priority for us and what was important for us in communities. And so I acknowledge again, I know that's a lot of acknowledging, but I acknowledge again all of the legacy work that's been going on in the space. Way back in 2008, Harmata Community Council in the APY lands made a store policy to not sell the three top selling soft drinks. And what that meant was tons and tons of sugar was not sold in their stores as a result. Tons and tons of sugar was not consumed by mob in the community as a result. More of these bold and innovative initiatives following this lead will be told throughout this 4-part series. Providing a secure, healthy and affordable supply through stores and takeaways in remote communities does not come without its struggles, of course. And this series will provide a forum to discuss ways that are appropriate and have community at the centre of decision making. For us here at Monash University, the event aligns very well to our strategic vision as an institution to serve communities and to help address the challenges that they face. But more than that strategic vision, this event aligns to our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander framework aspirations, which are to make meaningful contributions for the lives of Indigenous Australians in the challenges and against the challenges that we face. So in 2020, Monash University made a submission to the Parliamentary Inquiry into food pricing and food security for remote communities. In this submission, we advocated for vibrant and healthy stores and takeaways that have a community at the centre of setting policy for food security now and into the future. On behalf of Monash University again, I wish this event every success in its aim to advocate with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities for a secure, sustainable, healthy, quality and affordable food supply, where all people at all times have access to the food they need for healthy and fulfilling lives. I applaud you all for your leadership, but particularly all the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander mob, because your work, your presence and your commitment to be here on this event, participating in this event, sharing your stories and your work during this event is evidence of the importance of self-determination. It's evidence of the importance of our mob doing the work for our mob. Congratulations on showing up. I hope you gain new insights, all of you, new energy and new ideas from all the stories, and I hope you enjoy the 4 online events. I declare this online event open and I thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Jacinta. That was lovely words. And there was a lot of words in there and a lot for people to take in, very true and honest. And the part that people online that know me that I work a lot around is the human rights. And as you mentioned, Jacinta, that everyone has the right and access to good food and fresh running water. And you also mentioned we haven't, as Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, we haven't always been able to control that. And you also mentioned food systems. So the next hour, I would like people to reflect on what Jacinta said and just think about in the work you do, Indigenous, non-Indigenous people online, how do you think about that? And reflecting on all the words around human rights and that Jacinta said. So that, thank you very much, Jacinta. So I would also like to acknowledge traditional custodians of all the lands you're on today. I'm sitting on the Awabakal land, Awabakal people in Hunter area near Newcastle, New South Wales. I would also like to acknowledge past, present, pardon me, and emerging Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people online today, and also acknowledge my sisters and non-Indigenous sisters and brothers online. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you again to Jacinta and Monash University for making this today. So we have 185 registered, and I can see on the participants we have 101. So that's a very good success. Anyone that knows about these webinars, they say you usually get half people that are registered. So we're well and truly over that. So it's great to see everyone online today. It's really important, this series, and I feel very privileged to be invited to facilitate this. I just wanted to read something that, as everyone online would know, around that this week, today's our last day of National Reconciliation Week, so it's great to start our series on this day also. I'm sure a lot of you online have been to different activities, meetings, events through this really important week. But I just wanted to read something out, and you can read all this if you already haven't on the Reconciliation Australia website. But it's more than a word. We have to think about, and again, over the next hour, think about this. What is true, honest reconciliation? And this is what this series is also about. That's the theme for 2020. More than a word, reconciliation takes action. And again, from these series, we hopefully that we'll be taking action. Urges the reconciliation movement towards braver and more impact action. The brave and more impact action is really important in this, and it mentions a lot about that throughout the document. But reconciliation is this journey for all Australians, as individuals, families, communities, organisation, and importantly, as a nation. At the heart of this journey and relationships between the broader Australian community and Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. To our new supporters, please remember the importance of privileging and amplifying First Nation voices as you add your voice to calls for reconciliation and justice. That's really important to remember that amplifying Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander voices. We all have a role to play when it comes to reconciliation, and in playing our role, our part, we collectively build relationships and communities that value Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people's histories, cultures, and futures. So it's about 20 actions for reconciliation, and I said you can see that on Reconciliation Action Australia on their website. So have a look at the actions, 20 actions, what you can do, and there's lots of things on there that you can do as Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal people also to bring us together. I thought that was really important to go through that. So in the chat, I always like to do this when I'm facilitating. I'd like to know where you're sitting, who you are, where you're sitting. You don't have to tell me your role if you don't want to, but where you're sitting in this beautiful part of the country. What Aboriginal country are you on today? So in the chat, if you could just put that in the chat, please, that'd be wonderful. So, and again, we're from all different parts of the country. So, you know, every different part of the country has a nation, has a country, as you can see this, and we're very diverse, we're very broad, and this is what's so wonderful about Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities and our nations that are there, that you can see that there's so many on there. So I can see lots of people are writing that in, so thank you. So we'll go to the housekeeping now. So just with the housekeeping, it's been recorded. So everything's been recorded online here, as you know, most things are now. So if you can keep your cameras off if you can, because sometimes it's really hard for your internet and can make it very unstable. So if it starts getting a bit fuzzy or anything, just turn your camera off, because sometimes that happens. All these new things we've learnt over the last year with COVID coming in. All the microphones are on mute at the moment. Question and answer time. If you can put that in the chat. So as we go along, you can put it in the chat anytime. Questions as we go along with any of the presentations, put them in the chat, that'd be great. And then also with the volume of some of the videos, I've watched them this morning and they might be a bit quieter. So you might have to adjust your volume on your own computer to make it a bit louder. Also, Julie Brimbleco, the wonderful Julie Brimbleco, that a lot of people online will know. If you don't want to post your actual question on the chat, you can post it to her, and all the questions will be coming to me to ask, depending on time, to ask it at the end of, once we do all the presentations. I would also like to introduce, we have a graphic recorder. So I don't know if anyone's had the privilege of having a graphic recorder involved in any of their events they've done, and we've got Zara, who will be graphic recording everything we do on her. She's very, very talented. You could see her there on the screen, a very talented young lady that will be graphically recording everything that we do on that template that's there in front of us at the moment. So I'm really, really looking forward to that. And she'll be doing live, there'll be live visual representation through the whole part of that. So thinking about where this come from and how we actually got into where we are today. So that's about today's seminar. Don't be too worried about the times. Anyone that knows me, that's just a guide for everyone to look at those. So don't go too worry about the times, because I'll definitely go over those times, which Stacey and Julie probably get worried about, but I'll try and keep everything in line as we go along. So getting into where this come from and how we got to today, which is really important. And it's about, the event is Healthy Stores 2020 Initiative. And it's been a long time coming. I'll talk about our group as we go along, but it's about the Healthy Stores 2020 study is a partnership with the Arnhem Land Aboriginal Corporation and ALPA, as a lot of you online will know. If you don't, you'll learn more about ALPA as we go along today. And they provided the world's first evidence that if stores restricted the promotion and marketing of unhealthy food and drinks, customers would buy less unhealthy foods and store businesses would not be harmed. So you hear a bit about this today, and I hope that you ask a lot more questions as we go along. And the event is to share this work in addition to other community initiatives also aimed at improving the supply of healthy, affordable food. I've been a nutritionist for many years, but there's a lot of people online here that have worked in stores, lived in communities, and worked on this for a long, long time. And I like to always think strength-based, and my glass of water is always overflowing. But, you know, let's really get into this. And people online, let's think about what you can do to make this better. Here we are, 2021, we're still having this conversation. Government's still having this conversation. I think we've got 100 people, 108 now online. Could be more, because people could be sitting in a room. So it could be 1,008, I'd like to think. That we need to have more conversations around this. As we know, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people are still getting chronic diseases at a far higher rate than I'm happy with. That a lot of people, I don't need to tell you online here today. So we really need to think about what we're talking about today. Where in your role can you make a difference? And at the end, we can talk about this. We've got another few series after this, another couple of webinars after this to think about this. But, you know, I think we really have to get serious with this. My Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people aren't getting better, are not living longer, and are still passing away, unfortunately, from preventative diseases. So I'll try not to go down tangent there, but to be honest, just to be truthful, I've just really had enough. So that's my little thing there I wanted to put in, my little vent. So I'll get back on track here. But it's really important to think about this and where we can come together, reconciliation, what can we do to make sure we help our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. So the event is shared, this work, in addition to other community initiatives, like I mentioned. So I'm blown away by what today, I only watched this morning and I got quite emotional on the initiatives that's happening in community that we might know about, innovation and coming from Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander led. This is really, really important also to remember this as we go along today. And this event is funded through National Health and Medical Research Council as part of the Healthy Stores 2020 initiative. So just moving on, this inaugural event aims to showcase good food, store and takeaway stories from around remote Australia and foster critical discussion among Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community members and allies on the role of stores for community food security. Really important. We're talking about community members and allies, which are all online today. We share this event with you to celebrate the initiatives in remote communities to provide healthy, affordable food while acknowledging the barriers to achieving food secure remote communities, which is really, really important. And hope through the discussion this event may facilitate, this event contributes to solutions, creating with community leaders and other experts, industry and policymakers that are important for communities and health and wellbeing outcomes. As allies with remote communities for a healthy, sustainable and secure food future, we plan to share the outcomes of this 4-part series at the AMSANT Food Summit and meet with relevant Australian government representatives to raise the issues identified through this event with your input. So I'm not sure if everyone knows about the AMSANT Food Summit coming up. I'll be there, I'll be presenting on a lot of this work also with Stacey and Julie. And Stacey, maybe someone could put up a link in the chat about the Food Summit. I'm sure Ben's online also, just to let everyone know what's happening in Alice Spring with the Food Summit coming up. So if you can get there, try and get there if you can, so it'd be great. We acknowledge the Healthy Stories Good Food 2021 online series. 32 working group members and their organisations who committed to making this event possible. So there was a lot of us involved, 32 of us involved. So of course everyone couldn't be there all the time. Thanks, Ben. So you can see in there, Ben's just put that in there. So have a look at that and try and get to the summit if you can. So 32 working group members, a lot of us involved from all different areas, all different organisations, all different areas, expertise in this. You will notice the shared language for the terms good food throughout our series. So you can see at the side here where the M is, there's all different languages in there. So 40 different languages were involved in this series, will be involved in this series. So it's great to see all the different languages, and I hope people online will see your language in there also. So through bringing these stories alive through film, we have given the microphone to the community. As you will see, this is about community talking about what they do. So you will just be so excited about this. Also with the artwork used for this event was created by young artist winner Jared Staines. And I know Jared has an Instagram page and a Facebook page. You can look at some of his wonderful work. Jared's a Gamilaroi man. With his artwork, Food Dreaming, this artwork was selected by the Healthy Stores Good Food 2020 online First Nations Selection Committee. There was a lot of us involved in this. We had some wonderful artwork that came through, so it was very, very hard for us to decide. And there will also be some information about, I won't go through the whole story, I respect the story. There'll be information about the story on the artwork, put in the link also that you can have a look, and it's a great story. So there was a criteria we asked for the young artist to talk about their artwork and their story. So Jared's artwork story is told on the Healthy Stores 2020 Monash University website also, and like I said, the link will be put on there. So moving on to the really exciting part. So we're going to go through 3 short films now. Sit back, enjoy. You'll get very emotional, take it in. There's so many messages coming out of this for everyone online today. And the first one, Menegrita, and then Arnhem Land, and then Northern Territory and Northern Queensland. So I will hand it over now for the stories to start. Thank you. For the videos to start. Thank you. Yeah, and before they do start, I would like to acknowledge the warnings on here, which is very respectful and should be put on everything with any Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander people in there also, that Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander people, viewers are warned that there might be Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander people in here that have deceased, and these stories and videos are relevant at the time of the first publication with the aim to achieve healthy food outcomes. And I will also mention there was a very strict criteria around this. We got some really, really good stories. So again, it was very hard for the committee to go through, and the criteria was well established, related to the store and or takeaway, evidence of community involvement, aimed to improve access to health affordable food. So there was other criteria, but they're the main 4 that we went through. So I'd just like to mention that before we start. I can send more information to people later on out of session if anyone wanted to know more about that. Thanks, Stacey.
Ay nga mangangaranja dorpal kana yala ba Wild Food Cafe bakan ma dorpal ka mapayala ba nemoya. I really like doing cooking. Yeah, lots of bush tucker in the kitchen, and we make it up with the fresh fish which is barramundi, or skinny fish, or tuna, or different kinds of fish. Yeah, mullet is the best thing, and also the barramundi is the best for the eating. And we mix it with the vegetable, that's a healthy food, and we taste it, and it's nice.
So the Wild Foods Cafe was something that Barwonunga started a long time ago under a different name. It was taken over by an outside operator who had come into the community, and we're providing a range of foods that when I got there and looked at it, didn't really think that they were healthy or good options for the community, and they seemed to be really expensive pricing. And the biggest problem for us too is that our corporation is there as a not-for-profit charity, so all the money that comes through our organisation, and if there's a surplus, it goes back into the organisation and back into the community. So with other operators that come into the community and sell their food, easy to make, easy to produce at high prices, all that money is leaving the community. And I really wanted to change that for BAC and change that for the community. The Wild Foods Cafe has been running for just a little over a year now since BAC has been able to take that back into its ownership. We have a duty to provide people with healthy options. So if the Wild Foods Cafe would cease, then it would be unfortunate for the community, because I really believe that they would lose the main access to fresh fruit and vegetables, ready-made, ready to eat on a daily basis.
Lots of people in Maningrida, they have rheumatic heart disease. We try and make them people healthy and strong.
I had a little bit of problem about taking sweet stuff. When I start work here, and then I start taking good food here at cafe, and then I went to the clinic, doctor told me that I'm healthy. I don't have any more problem. Good things about working here. I'm exercising here. I was happy I didn't have a job. Now I'm healthy. Yeah.
Well, we are trying to keep the community real healthy, and we're trying to keep them away from the aggressive food. We got 4 takeaway cafe here. They can sell chicken, whatever, but the people around the community, they're concerning about, well, some of them, they know themselves that it's aggressive food, so that's why we sell the fresh fish to the community around here. The Wild Food Cafe, they thought about it, said, we'll buy some fresh fish, then we can cook them and we can sell them to the people who come to the shop here.
It can make you better, this red bush apple, or they sometimes use it in cafe, this white bush apple and red bush apple. Some bush fruit that we have, some of them they're sweet and some of them they're sour, but they're vitamin C. It's good for using my bush food in Kalaparabara Wild Food Cafe. They make their own ideas to cook and mix it and all that, and then they taste it, they say, this is good. And when they finish their dinner, and then they sit down and feel themselves, it made them feel happy, smiling, all that.
It's healthy food for us Aboriginal people. It's been a 13 years that I was working different of job, and now this year I have job from the cafe. I really wanted to help my people to be strong, and I really like cafe because the cafe, it's a nice shop, it's a nice food.
We like working here because it's good.
It's good for us. We want to learn different things.
We want to learn how to cook.
Good food.
That's what I'm here for. I want to train how to cook white man food, Palanda food. And then I have to teach them how to cook blackfall away. We used to go out and collect mangaling, bulgur, red apple, jaruk, white apple, bogon. Yeah, my mom, she was good at that. Yeah, to collect bush food, and I know how to cook bush food too. There's a lot of young people here. They have to learn how to cook bush food too. Yeah, otherwise, when they go out with their family for a long time, they might cook all those bush food wrong way.
Promoting healthy food is paramount to anybody supplying any kind of food source to any community, particularly remote communities where people don't have a choice about where they can access food. So one of the amazing things about living in such an incredibly remote location and stunningly beautiful location is that we face so many challenges, and BAC comes across hurdles every single day. We are closed off to the rest of Australia during the entire wet season, in fact a little beyond 5 to 6 months sometimes. And so our challenge is being able to meet those high expectations that we've set, which is making sure that people have access to good food, healthy food, the right to be employed. BAC has an incredible 42-year history in Malangreta, but we're creating new opportunities for that whole of community approach.
I really like to work in cafe to help people, my people from Malangreta, some of their suffering, and we try and make them people healthy and strong. Dotpal Gyalaba, it means it's good.
So providing healthy takeaway options has been part of the ALPA story for a long time. We do have an ALPA health and nutrition policy, which includes how we operate our stores to provide healthy options, but also how we operate our takeaways. And our policy is owned by our board of directors, who are a full board of Yolngu directors that represent the 5-member communities of ALPA. And so they own our policy and are really invested in seeing how we provide healthy takeaways. So we have a KPI around our healthy takeaways with a minimum target that all our stores must meet to provide healthy options. We've worked on developing a ready-made meal range with Karen Sheldon catering team.
Come on, I'll show you around our kitchen. This way. We're preparing some beautiful ready-made meals. It's really important for Karen Sheldon Catering to provide affordable meals back to communities. We produce a range of ready-made meals. They go into the takeaways and into the retail section in the 21 ALPA stores.
They're really healthy.
We're passionate about closing the supply cycle. So the communities that supply the native ingredients that we put into our meals are the same communities that receive our meals. So it's important for us to design our recipes so that they're affordable for people back at community. So at the end of 2014, we were approached by ALPA because they were aware of our healthy, nutritious food, ordering office catering from us. And they said, can you guys do something, because we were aware that you work with Indigenous Territorians in the training area. and you're passionate about employing local people, we want to support you guys. So what can we do together in terms of food offering out on the communities that's healthy and nutritious, that is providing people with a bit more of a variety at the store end, as opposed to, you know, like the chicken wingdings. So we had lots of discussions with the Alpa nutritionist at the time, and we came up with a range of 6. We've got 18 different products now. Yeah, so we are extremely grateful to Alpa. This financial year alone, we've made over 10 tonne of ready-made food in our kitchen here.
Way back when I had my first restaurant in Tennant Creek, we were never able to involve Aboriginal people as much as we wanted. We started to realise that there were some issues that needed solving. So that's when we decided we would start training, and we would find a way to develop the program ourselves based on our own experiences of how we could engage and retain staff. So that's how we started our Future Stars Indigenous Employment Program, and it's kind of grown, and now the modules are reinvigorated and renewed every year to make sure our programs stay relevant. We've worked in many communities throughout the Territory. Whenever we go into a community, we're looking at how we can actually not invent wheels of our own, but reinforce and strengthen programs that are already going. We now have many, many people from all over the Territory. More than 60% of our kitchen staff are Aboriginal people from all over the Territory.
Best thing is that I've learned a lot from this kitchen about new recipes and the cooking skills as well. My family thinks it's really good. I love it.
All our kitchens are training kitchens, so there's training going on all the time, and I think the opportunities in communities are absolutely vital. So we've kind of got this whole pathway now from the very first pre-employment right through to working in the incubators, to helping people to deal with the many challenges they face, and then moving on into our VTech program with Saltbush Social Enterprises, our sister organisation, and then moving through to careers. And we provide long-term 6 months mentoring while they're into a job. So it's the whole progression that we're really interested in helping people with. As employers ourselves for the last 50 years in the Territory, we've come to understand the barriers people face. So that's why our incubator kitchens are so important to us, because things aren't time critical and because we have a very supportive environment to work in. If you develop those employability skills that are required in hospitality, you can get a job anywhere because they're the same kind of skills. That's what we try and develop in our Future Stars program, and the incubators are part of that pathway to a future career that we work on.
Talking about how food actually impacts your health and your alertness at work, and the importance of keeping well hydrated and all those sorts of things. You can be talking about that while you're working alongside the staff in those stores.
We would really like to see them being operated by local Aboriginal people. We'd like to see some of the produce being produced on communities. We'd like to see lots of learning going on, so training at every aspect, and on-the-job training is so important.
There have been ready-made meals on the market for a while, but not companies that are, supporting Indigenous training and employment and prioritising incorporating traditional foods into their meals. And so Karen Sheldon Catering, fits that. They're a really important range that should be available across all remote stores, but we're really lucky in having this partnership with them and continue to foster it and continue to see other opportunities that we can have with Karen Sheldon Catering Group to grow it.
We've been eternally grateful for our partnership with Alpa, because it's blown us away the way Alpa's gone over and above to work with us. Anything we do along the way, we want to make sure that we're always looking at ways we can sustain our training programs and our small business development programs for Aboriginal people and Aboriginal communities along the way. So we love being part of that circle of the Alpa family.
I've been here for 8 years now, and I've started in 2013 working for CEQ as a store manager on Mobiag, and then I got transferred into Thursday Island main store, and now I'm the assistant store manager. I've had Cert 3 in retail. We've done numerous training in managers conference that we attend every year. We do courses like first aid course, workplace health and safety course, and we also have been doing Metcash training online, which help us build our skills.
My name is Alma Naomi. I'm from Nambour community. I work at Outback Store as a training officer. I worked with the community store for over 6 years. Managers could change every 3 months or 6 months, and the communities got really tired of it. And that's why they said, we need someone here. They know I was capable to do the job, so they asked me to relieve the store for a while, yeah. I did Cert 1 in retail while I was at Barunga store, and this has led me to Outback Store. I've worked with Outback Store for 4 years now in Darwin support office. I first started as a receptionist, and I was promoted to training department, and then I was compliance and admin. I finished my training in 6 months, and then I was promoted to the training officer. I still travel out to remote communities and train in Cert 2, 3 and 4. It's much better for Aboriginal people to train Aboriginal people. People feel more comfortable. We've got more completions, more trainings in community stores. My passion is to see Aboriginal people one day running their own community store.
Hi, I'm Dottie. I'm from Maningrida community and I've worked with Outback Stores for 1 year. I've done Cert 4 in retail management, Cert 4 in leadership and management. I'm still continuing that, and I just recently completed my Cert 4 in training and assessor. I've learned a lot since I've started with Outback Stores. I want to do all these trainings so that I can go back to my community and hopefully become manager and help run the corporation out there. So I've got Alma's old job as a training and compliance officer, doing the administration role, signing up the trainees. I'm training to become a trainer.
And then she's going to join me. We're going to go travel out to communities and train all the countrymen, you know. We're not only training everyone in the store, but we're encouraging them at community.
And we're looking at doing school-based traineeships. I think it's a good opportunity so that same time they're working, they're gaining the knowledge and experience and understanding of how a store is supposed to run, so that one day they can run the community stores by themselves.
When they're leaving school, that they got a pathway there. They'll have a job waiting for them.
It's important for local mob to have good skills and understanding, so that goes back to our community. So we're giving back to our community.
Wonderful. I told everyone how exciting those videos will be. I had a bit of a summary to do, but we're going to be a bit tight and for time, we're probably going to go over a bit for time also, so hopefully people can stay around for an extra 10 minutes after that. But a couple of things I heard: capacity building, which is really important for our people, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander led, which I totally agree in, career pathways, building people up to be managers. So that's some really important things I took out of there, and I'm sure everyone else got a lot out of there also. So we'll move on now to Stefan. And Stefan, I will just get you to quickly introduce yourself before you do your presentation. Thank you.
Can you hear me now? Right.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I work for an Aboriginal Health Council called Ngunapa Health Council on the Arnangal Pindara Yankunytjatjara lands, which is in the northwest of South Australia. Couple of things first. I guess I can only speak for the stores that I've had experience with on the Arnangal Pindara Yankunytjatjara lands, APY lands. But I have been working with those stores where we really started in the late 80s. This is a story about health, and it was always driven by local people, Arnangal, that it was a health story. Our medical director, Dr. Paul Torzillo, back 20 years ago, I'll just read something that he wrote. He said, "It needs to be emphasised that the rates of obesity and insulin-resistant syndrome in our communities are now so high that the majority of the adult population over 35 will be affected. This provides a situation in which we are not aiming to target a subset or at-risk group of the population with a nutrition strategy, but our whole population is both at risk and suffering disease. This is why an effective and sustainable stores service will be an essential prerequisite for changing the health profile in this region." Now, he wrote that basically about 20 years ago. Currently, our health data is that 38% of people over 30 years have diabetes, 26% over the age of 15 are diabetic, 65% of our patients over the age of 25 have a body mass index that suggests that they are seriously overweight or clinically obese, and 65% of our population is 25 and under. So clearly, and then we had a situation where it was very common that they had May, we and no food days, 3 days, a common experience for people in the past. And this was borne out in a study done in 1998, where we also showed that there was a shortfall in people's capacity to purchase the nutrition, about $1,000 per person per year in their shortfall to purchase the nutrition that they needed. There's a long history of identifying issues around stores. Some of the things that impacted on people's capacity to or disrupted their capacity to source bush food in our area was the introduction of the Khaleesi virus, which wiped out the rabbits, the disarming of all the men as a result of the Port Arthur massacre. So that was the rifles were taken off the men, the population increase in camels, which ended up fouling the rock holes and making it difficult for marlu and Yintaka goanna and kangaroo and other species to source water, and then now the invasiveness of buffel grass, which is wiping out a lot of the traditional grasses and things of that nature. So this has actually pushed people more towards store food. The first report that was done that identified the need for original-based health stores policy was the UPK, or the Uankara Palyanku Kanyanjakul report in 1987. It also showed that there was about 66 teaspoons of added sugar in people's diet. And then there was a range of initiatives over the years stimulated by local people, and finally it eventuated in a series of resolutions out of an APY council. Now, early days, we recognised very quickly that stores were an essential service and not necessarily an enterprise. And when we discussed this, I don't know if anyone remembers ATSIC, but they told us that ATSIC would need to reposition themselves in a policy sense in order to see stores as an essential service. Interesting for us, though, is stores were always incorporated as not-for-profit. Though, of course, in those days, they were expected to produce a profit in order to cover what was often a shortfall in government investment or a shortfall in applying the social wage. So it was always seen handy to push stores to create a profit. One of the things we did when introducing the May Wirral Regional Stores policy, we stopped talking about profit we stopped using that term. We started talking more or less about the need for stores to have a healthy operating surplus. Okay, so back in 1998, there was a meeting of the Anango Pindara Yankanadara. There was a general meeting. They adopted 3 main resolutions, but essentially the resolution said that there needed to be a health-based regional store policy developed for the APY lands, and as a health-based, not a retail policy around developing or producing vast amounts of profit. Those three recommendations those 3 resolutions were taken on by Ngunapa Health Council and the NPY Women's Council, and they started working up in a participatory planning situation to develop and implement that policy. There was a number of things that were involved in that, but one of them certainly was we saw that affordability was a big issue. So again, we looked at, we had the National Centre for Social and Economic Modelling, who modelled the pharmaceutical benefits scheme. They actually modelled for us in 2004 a way of applying a subsidy at the point of sale system. Other things that we recognised really quickly was that there needed to be strong legislative base for the regional stores policy and regulations, and to that end, we looked at a bylaw, the possibility of having a bylaw that would give a legislative base for the stores policy and regulations. APY, the landholding body, had the capacity to provide a bylaw. We're also heartened by Professor Alan Fells when he was working on the store charter for the ACCC, who did hear about our desire to have a bylaw to provide a firm base for compliance, that he would support that. Any regional council, anyone that had capacity to produce a bylaw, that this would be a very strong, good legislative base. And then we also looked at the whole issue of ORIC and how ORIC can actually have an influence on producing a better regulatory framework. I don't know. Lastly, I guess when I was looking at regulations, it's always been the case that the Mayaweera Regional Stores Policy and associated regulations as a whole needed a way of being monitored and evaluated and ensuring that there's some sort of level of compliance. Overall, we saw 3 main levels of regulation. One was the international and the federal state policies. They were legislation governing food and goods supply. For instance, things like the Trade Practices Act, Food Safety Acts, etc. Number 2 was ORIC, which provided some sort of corporate governance, regulatory framework. And the third one was our actual policy itself and associated regulations. We saw that compliance and monitoring was needed to be done by nutritionists. And to that end, we've been running since 2008 market basket surveys and healthy stores assessments. We also rely on operations management to ensure that there's some level of compliance. But finally, we see that there's a need to have possibly on the board itself independent specialist directors that can advise the board around and provide a better regulatory framework. What we're finding in remote areas these days is it's very difficult to recruit and sustain and retain staff in remote areas, particularly out in the really remote areas. Perhaps the romance of working remotely is worn off, but either way, we need to ensure that that store boards have access, if they can't get it in their salaried positions, in their senior management positions on the ground, then at least, if possible, try and get it on the board as independent specialist directors, which is something that ORIC does allow for. And
2 minutes, Stefan. Thank you.
Right. So okay. So overall, I guess the Mayaweera Regional Stores Policy and Regulations has been going for nearly 20-something years. One thing that I do need to say is that You know, at the end of the day, it relies, all these things always rely on, you know, a good people base to manage things successfully. Sometimes things change, but the health call for this policy is still really strong. Unfortunately, a lot of the people that were part of the policy development and implementation committees over the years have now passed on because of chronic disease. But the May Wirral policy hopefully will survive. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thanks, Stefan. So much information there. And again, like you said, 20 years plus this has been happening and we're still here. So a lot of good ideas and recommendations you had there. So I hope people took that on. But again, thinking about, like I mentioned at the start, time, 20 years, 25 years, 30 years. And as Stefan just said, some people that have been working on this for a long time have now passed on. So I would like to think that in my lifetime, everyone here, we've got 100 people online. In my lifetime, I'd like to see some changes. So I'm putting that out to everyone online here. Before I go, please make some changes around everything that we're doing. So now we will go over time, like I said, so hopefully everyone can stay on for the next 15 minutes. We're going to question time with some incredible people. You just heard from Stefan. Stefan's going to be on the panel. Kai De Silva. Kai was on one of the videos, Health and Nutrition Manager, Arnhem Land Progress Aboriginal Corporation. Had a bit to do with Kai, very inspiring young woman. So thank you, Kai, for all your work. Also, Karen Sheldon, Managing Director, Karen Sheldon Group. You seen the wonderful work Karen and her team are doing on the video also. And I've been told Karen's got Emily, a trainee, with her. So I'm looking forward to this. So if there's any questions, send in your questions that you would like to ask the panel. I've got a couple here that I'll start off with. So Kai, I might go to you first. In the film, you refer to ALPA board owning the nutrition policy. When you said that, I was thinking, maybe that board could go to Canberra and talk to our government about a nutrition policy. So we could work something out there, maybe, Kai, or how that could happen, because we have a few issues on our government thinking about how that looks. So we could work on that another time. And so the ALPA board owning the nutrition policy for ALPA stores, to what extent is the board involved in the development and reporting of the policy? You mentioned KPIs and different things. So if you sort of can just give a bit of information about that, please.
Sure, thanks, Nikki. I think our board of directors would definitely welcome an invitation to Canberra to talk about health and nutrition policy. They've been really strong advocates in other areas, such as the cashless debit card in Canberra, which has, been instrumental in changing that kind of policy. So we've got some strong leaders on our board, and our policy and our strategy was developed in the 1980s and has been owned by our by our board. So any changes that we as the nutrition team that are employed by our board of directors think about, we have to put it on the table to our board, and we would suggest a policy that has been evidence-based, potentially from some evidence that we've been able to produce, and discuss the justification for making that change and the risk, the whole story, the risk that it could have as well in terms of profitability or surplus, as Stefan said, the impact that it could have on the financial viability of the store, and then as a collective, they make that decision on whether that policy is, really important for them to pass on and put into our policy. And it's really robust discussions. And I know Emma's on the line, who was a previous ALPA nutritionist as well, and she's been there with me to present policies. And, you'd present one and there's a big discussion, and then that policy is strengthened. So really, really involved in what we put forward in our policy, which is amazing. And we present back on a quarterly basis to our board on key KPIs being fruit and veg sales, which are, increasing our sales, which is obviously increasing customer consumption, healthy takeaway sales, sugary drink sales, as well as tobacco sales. And again, our boards want to see that we're meeting those KPIs, and they want to know when we're not, why, and what we can do better to get those KPIs met.
Wonderful, thanks, Kaya. And just in that, as a chair of a national peak body board, governance is really important to our organisation. So I can hear that coming through. So that's wonderful. I might, before I go to the others, open it up to the chat, because I know we're going to run out of time. And I do have a question here for Karen. Karen, I've heard that your takeaway produce is not available for stocking in Western Australia stores. Is expanding your product lines to be available in Western Australian stores something your company would consider? Thank you. Karen, you're on mute. If you could just take yourself off mute, please.
Sorry.
Great, thank you.
We are very happy to grow any opportunities for Aboriginal enterprise or Aboriginal business. Karen Sheldon Group is not an Aboriginal business, but we've been working in the food business throughout the Northern Territory for more than 50 years. And to be honest, what I'd really rather see is Aboriginal organisations taking up the opportunity themselves. We spend a lot of time training. I've been in retail ourselves and catering and major events. Right now we're doing the whole of catering for the Howard Springs quarantine facility, and that's where we are right now. And Emily is a tea tree lady from Tea Tree in Central Australia. Emily is in the 3rd year of her apprenticeship as a commercial cook, and I am just blown away by Emily, who's a grandmother, who has been I honestly did not think she would stick it out for an apprenticeship. But, you know, we have a policy of never playing God ourselves, never judging when people come to us that want to get a job of any sort. And when Emily applied to be one of our ACE, Accelerated Aboriginal Cooks of Excellence program, I honestly thought she'd probably be the first one to drop out. And I have to eat humble pie and say how wrong I've been, because here's Emily now in her 3rd year. She's done all her theory training, and she is now finishing off her work.
I'll see you around.
A qualified chef.
I'm going to go to Finch.
Can everyone put their video on mute, please?
And Emily is one of the keys to producing food for up to 1,000 people a day out here at Howard Springs, when every day we're getting amazing feedback on the Howard Springs International Facebook for quarantine from the people that are enjoying the home-cooked meals that Emily produces. And these are basically exactly the same quality of food that we supply to Alpa stores. And Emily's been very much involved before we won this contract in working in our Parliament House in Darwin kitchen, producing these meals. Haven't you, Emily?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well done, Emily, and I'm very proud to hear that. And I think that maybe a nutrition degree is probably on your way next, Emily.
Yeah. I think Emily can tell you all about the healthy food. You want to tell them about your family, Emily, and how you've been working towards, you know, eating healthier yourself and providing healthy meals?
Yes, I would love to.
So how long have you been doing your apprenticeship?
I've been doing that for 3 years.
3 years now, yes. And at the same time, you're looking after a lot of your family members and your grandkids and your kids, aren't you?
One grandkid coming up.
One day.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been really busy. Over 50 years old.
Over 50 years old.
Really hard for me, but I enjoy it. Waking up every morning, get ready and just get ready for work.
Yep. And why do you do this? Why did you take this apprenticeship in the first place?
I wanted to do something different. So I looked up cooking.
Yeah.
It was on a poster on the walls.
And why are you doing this?
I wanted to show my kids that when you have kids and when you're reaching 50 or over 50, it's not too late for you to start.
Yeah, you told me you wanted to show a better life for your kids and your family and all your community
family,
down at
friends,
Tea
and
Tree.
community, the other community as well.
So well done, Emily. And I think you probably don't realise how much of a role model you are for not only your family, for community and all the other people listening. So I would like to say, on behalf of myself, that I'm very happy for what you're doing. And like I said, you probably don't realise how good you had. And I'm sure there's people from Northern Territory Government that have awards and different things online today. So I'm not sure what awards you have up that way, but I think, Karen, there's probably plenty of awards we can nominate Emily for. So Emily, I look forward to hearing.
She's already been nominated for the Apprentice of the Year with the Northern Territory Education Awards. So
there you go. You got my vote. You got my vote, Emily, even if it doesn't mean anything. But anyway, thank you very much.
We just think there's never enough investment in the grassroots on sites that need to happen. You know, if people are going to provide healthy meals in their stores, they need to have passionate trainers that are training them on site, and that's what there's never enough funding for. That's what we always find.
Yeah. So thank you very much. There's another question here that Kyra, I might give this one to you that's come up in the chat. It says, not a question per se, but I'd love to hear about people's experiences working with privately owned stores and businesses who engage poorly with community-led public health initiatives. It's quite a big question.
Yeah, thanks, Nikki. That is a massive question. I guess prior to my life with ALPA, I was a public health nutritionist with the Northern Territory Government, and so did have experiences working with with privately owned stores. And I think, you know, you've just got to go and start having that conversation and building those relationships and with the private store owners and bringing them on the journey, because you'll be surprised to see that, you know, they might be willing to work with you, and I certainly had that experience, and there are others that might not be, and that's where it's, you know, important to have a look at the other stakeholders within the community who might be able to help bring them on the journey, whether that be, you know, land councils or local councils, and engaging the leaders of that community to really think about, you know, awarding leases to private owners and building nutrition requirements within those lease agreements, so that if it is going to be private, that those private companies are really thinking about nutrition for that health of their community, because it's ultimately the longest term investment in their business to keep their customer base healthy so they can have customers for a long time.
Wonderful, perfect answer, Kai. Thank you. I knew you would be the best one for that. There's another one here. Thanks for sharing these incredible stories. What processes do the different organisations go through to ensure they are providing culturally appropriate food? And I think that was mentioned in one of the videos about making sure the food, the recipes were from the communities, and a lot of the actual ingredients will come from the communities, and so that was one part. And what are the current barriers and or limitations? So I'm not sure, Kai, if you want to go, or we can hand over to Karen for this one, just about, you know, what processes do the different organisations go through to ensure they're providing culturally appropriate food? So do you find out from the communities what the community wants and needs, and what are the current barriers or limitations? So, Kyra, I'm happy for you to go first if you like.
Yeah, sure. I think if anyone's gone into an ALPA store, and if you have a look at, our teams in the kitchen, they are the local store team, full of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander store members who really direct what, is served. And so I guess that's how we try and support ensuring that it's culturally appropriate. But there's definitely opportunities, and it's amazing to see the work that the Wild Food Cafe are doing to incorporate more traditional foods, and I think that we can all learn from that amazing story. Barriers, I think Karen really hit that on the head in terms of funding to really have solid training around food provision available to RTOs that exist. So Alpha is an RTO, and we deliver retail certificates, and we do touch on prepared foods, but it'd be great to be able to provide more in-depth training around food provision to really upskill staff in preparing healthy foods. But there's a lot of other barriers as well. Having enough money to purchase the right equipment and infrastructure to facilitate preparation is really important. Like a combi oven to replace a deep fryer, that can be up to $20,000, and that's significant for a remote store. And so, we are fortunate in the Northern Territory to have access to different grants through the federal government, but that's not always the case in other states and territories. And so, grants for equipment and infrastructure are really needed to support healthy food provision in takeaways.
Yeah, thanks, Kai, because the other interesting thing is that we want to make sure that recommendations come out of this. We won't be able to fix everything, but we want to make sure recommendations come out of this. So that's really important. I've been told to stop it, Kai, but I know, Karen, you've took yourself off mute, so I'll give you a minute to answer that question also, Karen. Thanks.
Thank you. I just want to back up what Kai is saying. There's, for us, we've been cooking in the Territory for 50 years and doing training for the last 30 of those. So we always see that there's a lot of talk and a lot of programs at the top end, but at the top end of the scale, but right down in the grassroots, at the store level, at the training level, that's where funds need to be allocated so that the training and the motivation can be provided at grassroots level where people need it.
Yep. Wonderful. Thanks. That's all things we can take on board. And I know, Stefan, I've sort of left you out of a lot of this. Is there anything you would like to mention in 1 minute before I leave you? Because I've just sort of dumped you off the panel. Is there anything else you would like to mention before we go off the panel?
Well, I guess the main thing is to keep banging your head against the brick wall, because eventually the brick wall will give away. You've got to understand that we are operating in unstable funding and policy platforms, so it is a form of architecture on quicksand, what everyone's trying to do, but we have to do it. We have to do it. The bush food supply has been disrupted, and that hasn't been the problem of the local mob. That's normal, and to improve their health status, a better store service, as Dr. Paul said, is an absolute prerequisite. And I think, nutritionists, public health nutritionists in these stores, talking to store managers, store owners, store committees is an absolute must. So I'd like to finish there. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
No, great. Thank you. Thank you, panel. You've been wonderful. And like I said, the recommendations, we've got 3 other webinars to go, so we can build on this in the other webinars also, which is really important to take that on. So I'd just like to, haven't flick back to Sarah much, but you can see she's done all this work that you'll be able to look at, and this will also be out there, but you can see they're wonderful, how much she's done there, and she's got our flag there a few times, and it's just been beautiful work that she's done. And Emily, you're in there too. I see apprenticeships and different things. So there's lots in there. Thank you very much, Sarah. And you'll be able to view this also as time goes on. So thank you for your time there. So we're coming to the end now, and I'd just like to thank the wonderful working group that put so much work into what we've done. As we know, these things can't come together without all the people on the screen. All the people there on the screen. So incredible amount of expertise there from so many different organisations. So I'd like to personally thank you for bringing all this together. It's been a long time, but here we are, and it's been wonderful. I'd also like to personally also thank Stacey Holden. I know, Stacey, you've done so much work around this. Yes, it is your job, and yes, you do get paid for doing it, but you've done above and beyond, late nights, early morning, juggling, poor Stacey juggling, homeschooling because she's in Melbourne and the lockdown's on. So we really appreciate all the work you've done too, and the people that did the videos in all those wonderful communities. So the next event is what's going to be on the screen. So make sure you put that in your calendar for the next event. I'm very happy that I'll be going. A couple of people mentioned Barunga. I'll be up Barunga next week. I'm going up to Northern Territory and doing some work up there next week, going from the cold country to the warm country. So hopefully, if you see me at Barunga, I'll be at the IHA store. Come and talk to me, and I'll be talking about nutrition. So I'll be there. So make sure you come along. But I just want to summarise a couple of things from today, and this will only take a minute. That it's, like I said, it's a privilege to be involved. I've learned a lot, as I always do, when talking about food and nutrition and remote stores and remote communities. But again, we need to talk about human rights and remember human rights. This is really important to think. We're quite a wealthy country compared to other countries around the world, and have access to good food and fresh running water. We still don't have good fresh running water and access to good foods, and we still, the stats that Stefan said really upsets me again, to think all those stats of our people getting passing away, or not only mortality but morbidity, having chronic diseases, preventative chronic diseases that our people shouldn't have. So we really have to think about that. Mentioned about the resources, you know, we need funding to come into these places. We can't do it without funds. So it's been great. It's been a privilege to have everyone online. Hope you enjoyed it. Get back in contact with us if you want to know more information. But I said there's another few series happening soon. But take all this on board. Think about it in your roles. Think about it in your lives. Think about what I said about reconciliation and where we go with this, because we need allies. We've got Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, very, very clever Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people on the ground, thinking about innovation, thinking about how it happens. We've got our allies helping do that, but we all need to come together. Like I said, 100 or more people online, come together, and hopefully we can make a difference. So thanks everyone, stay safe, and I'll see you in another couple of weeks.